all right, but it didn't really like it was all right, but it had maybe like three-quarters of the actual services I saw on the exam. And then like there were a bunch of other like courses they offered, but I found the most beneficial thing was just taking practice exams and looking at practice questions. And then really just like trying to remember like not necessarily the specifics of each individual like service, but remembering like S3 as a whole and like all the things they offer, and then like their Snow family and stuff like that. I saw a lot of stuff about the Snow family. IAM and like policies and roles and organizations was big on it. And then just remembering like where you can find stuff with Artifact. I think that was like most of the questions I got. Um, and yeah, those so like the biggest advice I can give is don't like necessarily try to memorize specific notes about like specific things within the services. Just know like what a service does, and then you can generally drill from the question. So like, they'll ask questions about like grabbing white papers, and if you know that like Artifact is where they keep like their documentation most of the time and stuff like that, then I would just pick that and that kind of thing.
Awesome. Good to
Thank
hear.
you for that advice.
Sure. So at least now we got someone to advise us. Awesome. Great. All right. So today we will be starting for continuing our learning in AWS. But before I start, I want to open the desk. If you have any questions or doubt over any of the lessons covered so far, I may be open to, kind of help you here. Okay. Okay. I believe that people are yet to come out or are still celebrating the graduation. So it's okay. I think take a bit of time, and, hopefully if you get time, probably, it's time to relax as well. So I think probably the next week you may get some chance and go through the lessons that we have covered, and you can reach out to us that if you want to revise any portion of the lesson. That's totally okay. All right, so today we will be continuing our learning on AWS IAM policy. Okay, so AWS IAM is very important service of AWS cloud. Okay, so AWS will probably, okay, and let me see the chat. I think if there is anything that I'm missing. Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good advice that Edwin has given, that Tom, in fact, not Tom, for everyone, once you finish your practitioner, you can start practicing a bit on solution architect associate. One or two of the students in all past boot camps have finished the solution architect exam. Maybe once they may fail, but again, the next exam they do pass. So we have seen a good pass rate on solution architect. But again, I'm not going to say that, this is like a super thing. It's kind of a magic wand. You do this and, all the doors open. It's not like that. At the end, certs are just a way of, showing your credentials, your knowledge. But the actual practical thing that this is the app, can you deploy this? Is the real outcome of the bootcamp, and that is the real thing that probably any company would be looking for. So I think that would be my highest advice, that the class is the most important part that we are doing. Hands-on part is the most important part of doing it. Okay. But this is like a very good amount of exposure you get. Okay. Using these certifications. So definitely, I think solution architect associate everyone can pass. Okay. So you may probably focus now, and maybe 1 or 2 months of time should be good enough to start. And thank you, Edwin, for sharing these thoughts. Okay, again, coming back to my lesson. So today we'll be talking about AWS IAM policies and groups and roles and some other related concepts. So as the name sounds, AWS IAM. Okay, so AWS, we know it's a cloud service, and IAM is like identity and access management service. So what does identity mean? Identity means who you are. Okay, how do you identify?
Chandra, I don't think you're sharing your screen.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I was not still, but I will start doing now. Okay, and give me 1 second. Let me set this up. Right.
And
So
Chandra, I'm still trying to set up my personal account. I read your message in Slack just before class, and I'm awaiting the second
what is the issue?
validation code. Go ahead.
No worries. While I'm, covering the concepts, in parallel, those who do not have the account, please create the account. Okay. Yeah. So it's totally okay. But all of you would need your personal account so that, you can, work in freedom with full permission. Because in our accounts, we have some limitations put as permission. And also you will learn to, play. And this is like a free service. It doesn't cost you anything. So you can experiment as you want. Okay, so AWS identity and access management is like the foundational service, okay, of AWS. And in this lesson, we will be covering these topics: AWS IAM, users, group, policies, roles, and organization. We will try to cover this, okay, in probably 2 sessions if at all needed. And we'll try that you get enough time to practice on all of these concepts. And it is possible that you may not understand everything in one day because it is the thing that you probably learn as you keep using it. This is the service you will always need. Whatever interaction, whatever service you do, AWS, with AWS, permissions, roles, and access is very important part. So that you will always see. So let's see introduction to, let's understand what it is. Okay. So as I was saying, it's kind of a foundational service. It enables all other services. Okay. So for example, if let's say you have an EC2 server, okay, and that EC2 server is hosting an application. Let's say this is a web page, and web servers are not supposed to host the object types files like MP3s, images. So those files you have to store this in object storage S3 bucket. Okay. So in those cases, you know that you need permission, right? Without permission, you cannot access S3 buckets. Okay. So for that reason, we need to provide this access, and that access is the way how AWS knows that it can do that operation or not. Okay. So there is two concepts in this when we say access. Okay. One is authentication and another is authorization. Okay. So authentication and authorization seem similar things, but they are essentially different. The difference is authentication means that who you are, you confirm who you are, right? For example, let's say you visit your office, okay, and you have to show your ID card, okay, and that shows that you authenticate that I am this person. You can match my face, you can show your driving license, and it can prove that you are the person. Okay. Authorization is slightly different. It does not tell who you are, it tells what you can actually perform. Okay. So for example, let's say that you let's say that you go to you go to a bank. Okay. So in the bank you want to let's say inquire about your account. So employees may ask you for your authentication, that who you are. Show me your ID, show me your passbook, show me your some other stuff with which you identify yourself. Once authentication is done, then you can say that, okay, I want to withdraw, let's say, $1,000 or something. So that is the point where authorization comes. I know that you are the person, Chandra, but are you really authorized to withdraw money, right? So if let's say I own the account, probably I can withdraw money, right? But let's say it is company account, okay? It's company account. Company has authorized me as someone who can manage the account, but maybe company has not authorized me that I can deduct money, right? Company has only authorized me to issue some checks, issue some demand drafts or something, but not really withdraw money. And that is the place where authorization comes in picture. Okay, did you understand this? The difference between authentication and authorization, right? So this is an important part which we'll be using in this, okay? So this was authentication and authorization. Another concept that is principles. So in AWS, principal is the entities that can make request. Okay, so who can make request to? Okay, so let's say you're the bank employee. Okay, so maybe like you, there could be 2-3 other employees. Okay, so let's say you are account manager, and let's say there is bank bank owner. Okay, let's say bank owner is there. Now, as an employee, okay, as an account manager, you have certain access. Owner will have probably highest access, more access, maybe directors, okay, CEOs, they will have highest access. So there the principal is the person who is making the request. You go to the bank, you tell me what is the balance in the company's account, current account. They tell you, let's say there is 1 million or something. That time you are the principal. You are making the request, okay? And bank will decide to tell you that you can or you cannot, right? When the CEO goes, he becomes the principal, right? So principal in AWS is any service which makes a request to another service. For example, EC2 may make a request that I want to access certain files from S3 bucket. Okay. So when EC2 is making a request, EC2 is the principal. And resource is the item on which you are performing this. You're trying to access this, that particular asset. Okay, so when I'm making the request on my bank's account is the resource. I'm the principal. I have identified myself, authentication is done, authorization is also there. I'm authorized to perform this action. Okay, inquire about balance, and that account is the resource. Okay, did you see all 4 things are similar, related? So that is the concept behind identity and access. Okay, so you authenticate yourself, you make a request. When you're making the request, you are the principal. And when you're making that request, if you're authorized, that is the time when your authorization happens. And then authorization happens on what? On the resource, on the asset. Understanding? That asset is your resource. Okay. Any doubts? Okay. So that sounds good. Bank sounds simple. How AWS works? So the way how AWS works is like this. Okay. You have IAM policy, IAM service. Within this IAM service, okay, you have like a who is this person, the authentication part. It can be a user, it can be a role, it can be an application. Okay, and and then you make a request. Okay, you see, as a principal, you must authenticate yourself. So you are the principal. Okay, principal has to provide the authentication key. Okay, so when you're making the request, okay, you're providing the credentials. And what is the request? When the principal is making a request to a resource, this is request. So you're making the request, and on what? That is a resource. So here AWS may deny or approve your request based on this permission given in IAM policies. Okay. So who is making a request on what, and what is the access? Okay, as simple. So with this, okay, you can actually use AWS IAM service with this knowledge that how AWS IAM works. Now we will be going ahead and using this service to perform certain actions. Okay, so let's open our console, everyone. Open your own console. Today you will not be using account given by us. It is a free service. You will have your own account, you will have root access. So I will give all of you 5 minutes of time, 10 minutes of time to set up your account. If you, I had sent message, but let's say you could not for some reason, you can let us know if you need help. Okay. I'm giving 1 minute to get into your console. If you don't have account, please create now. Okay. I assume everyone has gotten the account. Please give me a thumbs up if you are ready with your personal account. Good.
I'm at the final stage with the Authenticator app, so be there shortly.
Perfect, perfect. I'm just looking for a thumbs up from Troy and Jules. Perfect. Troy, okay, very good. Perfect. All right. So if you have gotten the account set up, then we are pretty much ready to go. Now, one thing is very important in your personal account, whatever you do, that your mistakes will come at the end of the month as your credit card bills. Okay. So please avoid making mistakes. For example, we may be doing a small experiment with creating server. Server is free. If you make wrong type of server, you pay. Okay. If you start a server and don't stop it for 1 year, T2 micro will not cost you, but beyond an year, it will cost you money. So don't create any resource which you are not attending. Perfect. So with that idea, I will. Yeah. So Edwin has sent a doc as well, which will help you. So perfect. So let's get to our account. So as you can see, this is our account. Let me sign in again. Okay, so first of all, we will have a look on what is users. Okay, so AWS IAM, the most premier thing that you build, the first thing that you build is users. So what is users? Users are the identity with which AWS identifies you. You are giving a name, a password, an access key, and with that you can log in. With access key, you can use CLI to log in, and all of you have CLI working. Okay. With this on users, you can attach the policies directly. Okay. So user gets the permission to perform those actions. There are many best practices like multi-factor authentication. We will learn all of that. Okay. So if you want to use your CLI, you will have to set up your CLI again. Okay. So what I mean to say is, if you remember, we had gotten the AWS STS get caller identity. This command will tell you who you are. Okay. I've sent in chat. So this command, you can say that it is pointing me to our account 2078. Oh, no. So let me profile that. Okay, it is pointing me to 2078, the our account. All of you would be having this account only. Correct. But if you want to use your own personal account, you will have to go ahead and create the credentials again. Do you remember how we did last time? You'll have to create it again, but now you'll have to set it up using AWS configure, okay, minus profile, and give profile a name, person, something like this. Okay, if you do this, then it will ask you for new key. You getting the point? I'm sending this in chat. This will help you to use your CLI. I will be using console and CLI both, so that you learn both ways. So all of you, please take 5 minutes of time, say 10 minutes of time, and configure your CLI with your personal account. I hope everyone is able to follow. Any doubts? What are you saying? What is profile? What is personal? You remember, you go to your user in your personal account, everyone. You go to security credentials. Okay. And you create your security credentials here. Create access key. And set up your personal account. Take 5 minutes of time, get your personal account ready. I'm back in just 1 minute.
So, so the way usually AWS is structured, when you create an account, you have your main account, and that's going to be the main account where you how you call it where you create users for that account. And it's best practice to only use the main account to to pay for any bills from AWS. Then when you create a user, when you give user that privileges to later be able to deploy services. So that's the reason why I say it's not recommended to create a access key and a secret access key, but you're still able to do it on the root user, if that makes sense, Tristan and Cassandra.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right.
I'm on mute. Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm actually at the point of setting up a user on my root account right now.
We'll be just doing that. Okay. So, let's go ahead and, first of all, you can see a list of IAM users. Okay. With this command, if you write, you can see the list of IAM user on this account. If I gave this one my profile as Bravo in Bravo account, you can see all of you are available here. Okay. So in Bravo, these all are the users. Okay. We will now go ahead and first of all create a user. Okay. So I will be again creating the user on this account itself. So I will go on create user. You can use CLI. If you want to use CLI, this is the command. Okay. If you want to use console, which I will be showing both, you can go here and you can write. I'm just adding temp so that we know it is temporary. I have to remove it. Okay. Okay. So if you give this here, you have to provide the access. Okay. And here you can give auto-generated password or a custom password. So I'll give a custom password. So let's say I give, okay, the same password. Okay. You just need to create a new password, like I am disabling it so that the same password can work. So this is how you create a user. Okay. So you can go ahead and create using user this. You can click next. And this is where you give the permission to users. Is everyone working? So this is the step which Edwin was just mentioning, that you do not use the root user for regular purposes. Okay. So for all regular general purposes, you will be using actually some other username, IAM user, rather than the root account. Root account is primarily for managing your account in terms of payments, bills, or sometimes some support issues come. Okay. So you can see that there are three ways how you can give the permission to users. Now you may think, what is permission? What is policy? What is this panel? We will come to all of that. Okay. For now, what you can do is you can go and click on attach policies directly. And let's give this administrator access. So what happens is the user gets the administrator permission directly. This is as good as being the root user. Only thing is that has a bit less permission in terms of deleting account and all. Okay, we will go to all of these options. Let's go to attach policies. Now what happens is, let's see what is in this policy. We will again revisit it. It is just telling on every resource, perform every action. Okay, so it is kind of, star means if you are coming, in regex, if you write, a star means all. So this is just giving all permission. We'll understand this more. Okay, you click on next and you can give it a tag, like for example, you can give team, you can write this team is DevOps, you can write environment, you can write dev environment, prod environment. It is not essential, but you can give some. Normally companies use this a lot because they have hundreds of users. So you can see the user is created. You will see where you can log in. So you can try if your login is working. Now your personal account is ready. So you will not be using your root account anymore. You will be using this IAM user for all practical purposes. So go here and this is the console password. You log in with that password. Right? So we got inside the console using new. Sounds good, everyone? So this is how you create the users. Okay. Now there is one thing that once I was logging in, you might have seen that the URL I had given, that was this URL, CP Bravo. Okay, how do we get this? You go to dashboard, and this is where you can edit this. You can edit to any number, anything which is not taken by anybody else. So you can give it your name, you can give it some fancy name or something, whatever you want. Okay. Now, if you go to your user, okay, there is an option to create MFA, okay, multi-factor authentication. Okay, so in your account, you should always have MFA, at least for root user, you should always have. In fact, you should have for every user. We have not enabled for all of you because it just creates a bit of cumbersomeness. Sometimes your phone is not working, then you are not able to log in. Even I cannot help you log in that case unless I reset your account. So for those cases, we are not implementing this policy, but otherwise you will always go ahead and you will enable MFA. So I will show you how to do MFA, and in fact I will recommend all of you to do this for your personal account. If you feel that you are okay, then that's fine. Otherwise it is recommended, because if your account gets compromised, this can protect you. So you can click on MFA, enable MFA. For example, I'm enabling MFA for this user, and it will then tell you how do you want to have MFA. So you can either use authenticated app, security, or hardware token. Easiest is authenticated app. So you can give it a name and you can click on next. It will show you a QR code. You can scan, and your devices, your account is MFA protected. If you want to set it up in your personal account, please go ahead and do it. Okay. So again, this is your personal account. You are responsible for managing it. Awesome. Now I will continue on with the lesson. Okay. Now you can perform some actions on this. Okay. So for example, I can go ahead. Let's see. Permission we will learn a bit later. Okay. Groups we will learn a bit later. You can go here, you can delete the user here. You can see here the access advisor that tells you what all accesses can the user perform. You can see here, you can click and create access keys, as we know already. Okay. So this is the way to manage users. The same action, okay, can be performed using CLI, okay, and I can write like this. Again, I'm just showing you that the same thing. Chandra is not, yeah, you can see I have not authorized this user to perform this action. So it will tell you that you are not allowed. Okay, reason being that we have in this user that I am showing you, okay, this Chandra user, this user does not have the permission. You can see user doesn't have deny permission for create user. Do you see this? Deny create user. So this user will not be able to create a user. But on your account, you can do it. Okay, so you can use console or CLI, both for the same. Any questions? Going forward, now we will talk about user groups. Sounds good, everyone? So user groups is the way to organize users. So if let's say you have multiple users in your company, in your organization, in your team, then it is very difficult to manage every user individually. So for example, let's say that you have three three developers. All three need access to EC2, right? But let's say one of the developer is promoted to become senior developer, so he will have access to database as well. So you cannot go and manually do all of this, because let's say you have hundreds of developers. Will you go and assign permission to every user? That is very difficult, right? So this is the reason we have concept of collection of the users, that is good. So here what happens is we will have multiple users, for example, user A, user B. These users will become part of a group, and you will apply policy on the group itself, and all the users will get the permission, they get the access. Okay. So you can add multiple users to a group. A user can be part of multiple groups as well. Okay. By default. Okay. By default, you will always have a root user coming, but there is no default user created, default group created. Okay. I think you can have 5,000 users in one account. I'm not sure. I will have to check. Okay. It's like it's very large number. You can always request for more numbers as well, but no one needs generally, so it works out. Okay. So we will now go ahead and creating some user. And as you can see, you can create user using CLI, or you can go to console. Okay. Now you can perform the same actions using your admin account, not the root account. Okay. Because we gave it administrator access. So you can click on user groups, and you can click on create groups. Okay. So you can see like we have these users. So for example, this is me, Julius, Preston, Reno. Then many of you have been working on East one, so we have just created East one U group just for your demo. Okay. So go ahead and create a group. Okay. And let's give it a name, team. Again, I'm adding team so that I know I have to delete it. Okay. And let's say that I create the group developers. Okay. So these are the developers. So this is kind of the group, and I can add many users to the group, the developers group. So for example, I can take myself, okay, and I can take Edwin, and I can probably put both of them to the group right now itself. Okay. So you're adding users to the group. Okay. And now you can attach policies on the group, in the group directly. Right? You're feeling it is the same thing. Instead of you giving permission to every user, which we did before, you are giving this to the group itself. So if you had one or two developer, it was fine. But if you have multiple, it is difficult. So I will give EC2 full permission. Okay. EC2 full access, you see. This will give full access on EC2. And you can click on create user group. Group was not created because I think I need to log in again. It is saying, okay, I will refresh. Okay, I will have to give it again. Temp developer. I'm adding myself. and admin in the group, and I'm giving ourselves EC2 full access. So any user who is part of this group will give full access to EC2. You can click on create the group user, and group is created. Okay, so both the users now who are part of this group, temporary developer, they all have gotten access of this policy permission EC2 full access. Sounds good? In your exam, you can get questions like this. I'm not sure about a practitioner, but in your associate, you can get questions like, this user is there, how to give permission on this. It will give you option that share the username password, email the password, or do this, that kind of the options. Okay, so this way we have created the user and the groups. Okay, now we will go ahead and talk about IAM policy, but we will go for break before that. Any questions? Awesome. Okay, so let's go for 10 minutes break. Okay, and returning, we will start from IAM policy. All right, so we were discussing about creating users and groups, which we learned. Now we are going to talk about creating policies. Okay, so as the name sounds, policy. Okay, so what is policies? Okay, so there are certain kind of guidelines, certain kind of rules, okay, certain kind of standards that we agree to, which we follow. Okay, so let's say that code platoon policy is that everyone must finish their group project to graduate. So that's a policy, that's kind of a condition, that's kind of a preset rule that you have to meet that expectation. Okay, let's say the policy is that you cannot miss more than 2 consecutive class. If you miss, then you have to first inform, take permission, then. So that's kind of a rule, right? So who defines this policy? Someone who is authorized to perform that action. And anyone who accepts that policy, when you joined Code Platoon, you accepted this policy that I will work enough that I finish my personal project, group project, then I graduate. If you don't, you do not graduate, right? So the way how we have policies in real world, okay, in our day-to-day life, in our administration, in our government, the same way we have policies in AWS, okay? So what is policy? In AWS, policy is a JSON document, okay, which defines the permission attached to an identity, an entity. So any entity on which that policy is applied, that rule is defined, that operation is restricted with that policy. Okay, so we have learned what is principal, what is the user. Okay, on that we can apply multiple types of policies. So there are essentially 6 types of policies in AWS. Okay, we generally use 1 or 2 types, that's all. Okay, there are others, but we will not be covering those in details. So one of the first one is identity-based policy. So identity-based policy is the most common policy we'll be using. It will get applied on the users. Okay, so you have a policy which gives permission, you apply. Second is resource-based. Okay, so you apply that on the resources. We will see the examples. Okay, and then we have permission boundaries. So permission boundary is kind of the set of rule that tells you cannot go beyond that. So let's say that you are, let's say, authorized to go to the bank, You are authorized to deduct money. You are authorized to do many things, but you're not authorized to kind of, close the account. Let's say you are angry with your employer. You go and say that, you know what, I'm authorized, close this account, and donate the whole money to this NGO or something. You can do that, right? That's the permission boundary that you can do whatever you want, okay? But you cannot close the account. So that's the permission boundary. Then is organization SCPs, okay? This demo I will show you. You can also do, but again, you will have to create one more account to see that effect. So you may probably not be able to do, but I will still show you, okay? And one is the ACL, that is the access control list, which is the old way of working in S3, not really used a lot now. Session policy is which is used to invalidate your session if your username password access was compromised. So if you leak your username password, this is what we do. So what we do is we use session policy so that we restrict any further damage to happen. Okay. So we will again not be looking in many of this. We'll be focusing mainly on first two, a bit of this, a bit of next two. Okay. So let's see what is a policy. This is how we define a policy. Okay. So normally, if you join an organization, they give you a contract or a joining letter. You sign that. That has certain conditions. You agree to that policy the same way this is the policy. This first of all tells you the version. They meant that versions could change, but essentially it has not changed since 17. So it just works out. So it's just the default one. Then is the ID. ID is just identification. Identification, not number, name. Okay. Then comes the most important part, that is the statement. So as you can see, you must have used JSON before. So JSON is made of certain objects and arrays. Okay, lists. So you have the list here. A statement is a list. Okay, in Python it is called list. In Java it is called array. Okay, so this is the list. Inside this you have multiple objects. So you can see this is the object number 1. In one policy there can be more than one statement. Okay, and in this you see the SID, that is the statement ID. This is again just an identifier. These are the most important part, that is effect. This tells what effect will this policy bring. So it brings, let's say, give permission. So effect is allow. Okay, you are allowing that. Then the principal. Principal says that who can access it. Do you remember we just talked about this principal? Principal is the entity, okay, which makes a request. So anyone can make this request. That's the thing that it wants to say. Okay. Action is S3. So the way how actions are defined in AWS, okay, is you can go and search and you can see this, the list of actions AWS allows. So this is just like a tons of them. So you can see S3 data access, signature, or whatever details you want to go. It has a large number of fine-grained policy points, access points. Okay, so you can like restrict what is auth point. Okay, you can restrict auth type. There are many of this, okay, that you can use, and okay. So this is a very useful doc. It says actions. So what actions you want to perform and what permission you need for that. Okay. So let's say that you want to create a bucket, right? So to create a bucket, you need these many number of permissions internally. Okay. So it's like auth type and all of this. Okay. So you can create a bucket, you can do, so for example, let's say create a bucket. So we can give the permission to create a bucket. So we can write AWS S3 colon create bucket, and that will allow us access. So majority of the task for you will be just reading this, understanding this, and using it. Please let me know if there is any question. We will, once we are using, we will understand more. Okay. Then is the action. Action, and what actions can we go from? S3 colon start, that means any action on S3. Okay, and the final one is the resource. That tells what type of resources this action can be performed on. Which resource? So you can see the way how AWS resource standard is this. Okay. AWS resource naming convention. Okay. So the way how AWS puts this condition is that this is the users convention. We can go in and read lot. I think I'm not able to find a good one, but let's say that's okay. I will still explain you this way. So the way how AWS does is, first of all is your ARN. ARN tells what is the Amazon resource number. Okay. Then is AWS. For you, every resource will have AWS. For example, let's say this user. For AWS, this user is the resource. So if you open the user, you will see here ARN. So almost every service will have ARN. Okay. Amazon resource number. This is how AWS uniquely identifies one particular asset, one particular resource uniquely. So how do we interpret it? We interpret ARN, Amazon resource number, AWS. There are two partitions of AWS cloud in total, three actually. One is AWS, the public one that anyone in the world can use. Okay. Second one is AWS Gov. So this is written here, AWS Gov. So AWS Gov is the government cloud. It is meant for government purposes, especially I believe only the United States right now. Their whole different cloud, setup is there for government defense security purpose. Okay. Then third one is IAM. That says the service name. So which service we are using? IAM. So you will see IAM. Let's say that we were to use EC2. So we go to EC2. And in EC2, let's say that you see certain servers. So this server that you see here, okay, this server will also have ARN. Okay, so let's say we open this, okay, and we search for ARN. Here. See this, let's say I go to AMIs and I will show you some AMIs. So let's say this is the AMI, okay. This will have, okay, I think these things do not have the ARN, sorry. I think the things that you create probably they have, let me see this one. Owner, ARN, why don't I see the ARN here? I'll open the S3 bucket and there I will show you some ARNs. Okay, so for example, let's say this is the S3 bucket. Okay, if you go to properties, okay, yeah, you can see here Amazon resource name ARN. Okay, so you can see here ARN AWS. The service name is S3 here. Okay, and then you have these two columns. Okay, so this one tells that okay, it is a global service. Okay, and next column tells it is with this account number. Since S3 is global service, you do not need that. And then you have bucket, the bucket you want to use, and then slash star means what particular type of folder. Okay, so this whole thing is given one ARN. Okay, so for example, if you open this one, this user Chandra, this user is also like a ARN IAM user. This is a global service, so it does not have the region. This is the account number. Type is user. Item is Chandra. So this is what you provide here in resources. Essentially, in AWS, there are two types of policies: managed policy and inline policy. Okay, and one is user created policies. Okay, essentially it comes within that only. So only the first one is this one, that is the user policy. But let's first create a policy and then we will try to understand the difference. Okay, so everyone copy this one. Okay, and let's try to understand what this policy is doing. This policy is with effect allow. It is allowing what particular thing? It is allowing on every resource. Okay, every resource, okay, uh, can have this. Okay, on every resource, what is the action? Action is EC2 star. Okay, so this policy will give you permission to do every operation on EC2. You can take this policy and you can now apply this on certain item like user or anything. The user will get that permission. So it is very similar to EC2 full. If you open, okay, it gives you a lot of other, but you can see here EC2 allow star. Okay, so full permission on EC2. Okay, and you can copy this and let's go ahead and create a policy. Everyone go to this page IAM, click policies, click create policy, and here you can give names and you can manually actually create it. For example, EC2, what actions do you want? All actions. Okay, so you can see these large number of actions. Okay, on what resources? Okay, so you can tell that okay, on every resource. Okay, and if you click on JSON, you will see what you get. Allow action EC2 star. It is the same thing we are building here. On every resource. This allows to put a list here if you have more than one. If you have only one, you can directly give objectives. Okay, if you go to visual, you can add some more permission. For example, I want to have on S3 let's say only read permission. Okay, all read and all list. See, these many number of permissions. And let's say all. Okay, generally do not restrict. You can give here and you can create the policy. You see, you have AC2 full access all resources, S3 full access on read and list on all resources. Now there is some difference. You can see that we have given S3 full access, all access, but resource is now limited on only S3 bucket. And here it is telling all S3 bucket. I can go here and I can give the bucket only this. So now permission will applied or get applied on only this bucket. Understanding the point? I know it can be a bit brain twisting initially, okay, but after a while it will become very easy to follow. So let's create something. Okay, let's just create what we had. EC2, go to visualization, delete whatever is, put your own. Normally you will create your own. Don't use the visual builder unless you know it is kind of a standard one. You can build your own. Okay, let's give it policy. I'm again giving TP class. I know that I created in class. Okay, I will give it name EC2 policy. Policy is created. Now there are essentially two types of policies based on the nature of creation. One is AWS managed. This policy AWS manages for you. AWS creates this, AWS manages this. This is customer managed. You create this policy, you manage this policy. This one we just created. Sounds good, everyone? Awesome. And this way, you have created the policy. This is customer managed. This is AWS managed. So let's say here you will get like policies, standard policies like this. Easy to follow. Yes. So if there is some policy already there, just use it. Do not create your own. Getting the point, everyone? So this is the concept of policy. In AWS. So policy is a JSON document which defines the access you have. Now, what is inline policy? So whatever policy you create, you can apply that policy on user. So for example, I want this user Chandra. Okay, let's say not Chandra because I already have. Let's say we have admin. You can see, okay, he has also, okay, let me delete this group. This was just temporary group anyway. Okay. So let's say that I want to have this user Chandra to have access to create EC2. So I can go here and click on add permission. Do you see? Add permission. And now you can give permission to the user, adding him directly to the group, or you can copy permission from other user, or you can directly inline attach your customer managed policy. Getting the point? Once you have the policy, you can attach it in 3 ways. Add the user to the group and apply on group. Copy permission from other users. Other is inline. You directly attach the policy on users. If I do this, the user has now EC2 full access. Okay. For example, I can show you. Let's see this in live demo. This is our user. Okay. Let's go to East 1. Now, okay, this user, okay, no, this user is not Chandra, right? This is temp Chandra. Okay, okay. This user is temporary Chandra. So let me go to that user. Yeah. Okay. This user has this permission policy. Let me remove this. User has no permission now, right? You see, no permission. We will refresh this page. You see error? Because user has no longer the permission. User can't see anything and not authorized to perform action. Okay. Now I go to S3. Okay. User has no permission to see S3 bucket also. Okay, so you can see. Now I will attach policy on this. What is the policy we created? EC2 full, right? Full permission on EC2. Add the permission on this user. And now you can see you are getting errors. You are not authorized. You refresh it. You can see at least the server running. Okay, did you understand the importance of policy and how it is applied? Okay, perfect. So I believe that we did good amount of learning, conceptual learning right now. Okay, I did show you some of the demos. Some of the demos I asked you to do, but now I will, okay, so today in today's lesson, we had planned user groups, policy, permissions we covered, and roles. Okay. So in afternoon, I was supposed to cover roles, policy, and roles. So I can go ahead and cover the roles now. Or what we can do is we can take a bit of time and you can probably do a bit of hands-on. Okay. I think, let me see how is the status of the lesson. How long is the lesson? I think it's not that large. I think let me cover roles as well. Okay. So you have some assignments. Okay. Assignments given here. Why don't I see assignments? Yeah. So these are the assignments you can see. Okay. You have this assignment here. This is your assignment for today. Okay. There are 3 assignments. Okay. So first one is should be the top priority to finish. Second one is this. But let's finish because I believe they will depend on roles. So you need to learn roles first to in fact finish the assignment. So let's finish the role. Okay. So let's but anyone has any doubts so far? Any questions? Policies, any questions? All right. So what you learned, at least you will get 3-4 questions, 5 questions in your solution architect exam. IAM is very important. I think it is perhaps the second, third most important topic for your exam. All right. So let's go and talk about IAM role. Okay. So IAM roles, what are IAM roles? Okay. IAM roles, okay, are the entities. Again, let me see the questions if there is any.